All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of your day. I know there's a million of other things you could have been doing, like watching cartoons or sleeping in, but we're thankful that you allowed us to be a part of your morning. We'll go ahead and get started by introducing the team. My name is Beto Vasquez.
There, I'm Jonathan Gonzalez. You call me Johnny.
My name is Ronnie Vasquez.
Hi, I'm Arturo Baza. Call me Archie.
All right, and Archie's going to be the culinary captain today. That's why he's standing by in the galley. Yes, Archie, we will see you shortly. Folks, we want to thank you again. We are from UC San Diego Create. Create is an educational research center at UCSD, and we do all things to make sure that all folks everywhere, regardless of your background, regardless of where you come from, everybody should have the same opportunities, and everybody should be equally excited about science. So it's with that in mind that we're excited to bring to you today the science of tortillas. Yes, I said it right, the science of tortillas. I know usually we think about tortillas, we think about tacos, or we think about nachos, or we think about quesadillas and all these other things that we like to eat. But did you know that there's a lot of science behind that? And you probably didn't. So we're going to spend some time. Thankfully, we have all these skilled professionals here that are going to be sharing a little bit more about the biology, the chemistry, and the physics behind tortillas. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. I see Ripley's really excited and she's ready to make some tortillas over there. So we're going to go ahead and get started by telling you a little bit of the background of the different sciences. And then Archie's going to take us away and start showing us what that looks like. At that point, if you're at home, you're in the kitchen, and you're ready to get busy making some tortillas, and you have masa, you have all the materials, feel free to follow along. If not, just watch us. We'll record it, and then later on, you can go ahead and grab all the materials by either getting masa that comes in the powder, and you can mix it up at home, or you can stop by your local tortilleria and buy it. It's usually like 50 cents a pound, not too expensive. And then you can continue to make your tortillas at home. So without further ado, again, we're going to go ahead and get started. Jonathan.
Still muted, sorry. So I'm Jonathan, you can call me Johnny. What I'm going to be talking, a little bit of background about myself. I graduated actually from UCSD as well, back in 2018. I studied biology. So on today's lesson, I'm going to be talking to you about the biology of corn, a little bit about how it came about, and a little bit of how it adapted over time. So when we think of tortillas, we usually think of this picture right here, right? Just the regular or tortilla, corn tortilla in this case. There's other types of tortillas, there's flour, there's even oatmeal tortillas, but for the purposes of this lesson, we're just gonna concentrate on corn tortillas. Now, something that's very important that we know once we start talking about corn is that it cannot be harvested year round. Yes, you can pick out corn in this, you can dry it up, and then you can make a tortilla or any other food derivative when it's the season. However, when it's not, usually what companies do is they dry it up, and that's when they form all that flour, or when they have the corn to make these tortillas out of. Something very interesting is that this vegetable, or this grain, actually, a lot of people call it a vegetable, a lot of people call it a grain. It's very open-ended. It actually was the root of civilization, of a lot of civilizations in Mesoamerica. As we may or may not know, the Aztecs and the Mayan civilizations down in Mesoamerica, where Central Mexico and Central America, their entire civilization was actually based on this food supply. Even in their religion, they said that they are literally children of the corn. That's how important this food item was for them. However, how did we go about the piece of corn that we have today? Well, back way thousands of years before, we have this plant right here that was called teosinte, right? Teosinte. What the people in Mesoamerica eventually did was they try to only pick teosintes that would grow in very particular patterns. In this case, in a pattern that was less elongated, and where the grains in this case were a little bit more compact. And this process is called artificial selection. Artificial selection is when us humans, we see a trait in a plant or animal species that we want, and we cultivate it, we make it reproduce in order to have more of those offspring that we can use. In this case, we wanted more grains. We wanted a plant that had a lot more, how do you say, like food supply, as a matter of fact. And we kept reproducing it over time. So this teosinte eventually became these over time and became a lot more elongated until thousands of years later, we have this modern corn or this modern maize that we have on the rightmost of this image. I don't know, Beto, do you want to say something a little bit more about this?
Yeah, and I would just add that nowadays, since we're able to familiarize ourselves with how the genetic code of something, and Jonathan will talk about a little bit more in a few more slides. We're now able to select for certain characteristics, right? So now we can have corn that is produced year round. Now we can have different variations of corn, as you're going to see in a slide later on. But the evolution, right, or the changing of something over a large period of time is continuous as we continue to select for certain traits that we like, right? Whether it's allowing it to grow over different times of the year, the size, the taste, any of those factors, or maybe even we want to make sure that it doesn't get eaten up by certain insects. We can also choose for those types of traits.
All right, thank you. Now, a little bit more about Teosinte. Just pretty much a recap of what we said. This all happened, this entire process happened over 9,000 to 6,000 years ago. There's not an exact time when we began as humans or as civilizations in Mesoamerica began actually cultivating, but we know roughly it was about 9,000 to 6,000 years ago. And here on the right side of your screen, yes, I think it's your right side of the screen, you can also see an actual real life image of how it evolved over time. We have the Teosinte, which is actually pretty small. The intermediates that we have here until eventually over time we begin to have that maize or that corn that we're very accustomed to seeing today. Now, just also to put things into perspective, the Teosinte plant, this is a quarter in comparison to how it was originally. And over time with this artificial selection, you can see the very, very, very drastic size change that came about. Not only size change, but also color changes as well as the plant structure overall. And this is just another image to show you the different types of maíces or the different types of corn that there have been identified. Nowadays, that was from dates that date back all the way to Mesoamerica until modern times. We have all these different types of corn. And now, what would you all think would happen if I were to make a tortilla out of something as this azul maíz that would have right here? What would you think would happen to the tortilla? Do I have any volunteers? If I would make a tortilla out of this one right here. Let me see if I can put the pointer. Yeah, I see someone raising your hand. Go ahead. You can, let me unmute you.
You would just make it into a powder and then it would become masa and then you could make it into a tortilla.
That is correct. But what would you think would happen to the color of the tortilla? What color do you think it would be?
Oh, with all these different colors of corn, it would be that color. It would be that color.
Exactly. Thank you very much for participating, Ripley. All right. So now let's think about a little bit more about what sets each of those corns that we previously saw apart from each other. Now we're going to talk about genetics. I'm not going to get a whole ahead of myself and give you a complete breakdown of genetics, but what I want you to take away from my part of the lesson is the differences between genotype and phenotype. When we're talking about genotype, we're specifically talking about the genetic code of a plant, animal, or an individual, right? These are the instructions that are in each one of your cells. While a phenotype, and I apologize for the typo at the top of the screen, it's pronounced with a PH, not with an F. Bilingual mind, I apologize. But a phenotype are the physical characteristics or the physical expression that that individual has. So if my genotype, for example, I want to use this image here at the bottom, right? This purple corn that we have here is called purple corn. Its genotype would be big R, just for simplicity purposes. But its phenotype would be, well, it's purple corn, right? It's darker corn. While over here, we have a yellow starchy parent, or yellow starchy corn, right? Its genotype would be, let's say, this little r, and its phenotype, right, would be, well, it's yellow, right? Now, if I were to cross, or if I were to make these two different types of corn reproduce amongst each other, what they would have is they would have this heterozygous, or this hybrid over here that we have, big R, little r. But because the purple starch is what we call dominant, the offspring of it would show the phenotype of purple corn, right? A darker corn. Now, I know this might have been confusing and I don't want to get a whole ahead of myself, but just remember that genotype is the genetic code or the genetic information of an individual, and phenotype is what that expresses, right? Your phenotype is determined by your genotype. And then Beto, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I would just add, I think one of the best ways to remember that is the genotype is like the ingredients. Think of making cookies, and this would be all the ingredients that would go into your cookie, the genotype. And then the phenotype is how it physically looks, right? Pheno, physically. So even though I put chocolate chip into the cookie and walnuts into the cookie, maybe it just looks like a chocolate chip cookie. I hope that makes sense.
All right, thank you for that contribution. And now I'm going to go ahead and let my comrade Ronnie take it away. So that concludes my biology part of the lesson, and he's going to talk about the chemistry part of the lesson.